Fantastic. How is everyone's MAGFest so far? It sounds like you are all still waking up. It's okay, me too.
Can we get some energy in this room? How's your MAGFest going? Yeah!
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, well, first and foremost, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for selecting this time, like out of your busy MAGFest schedules to see what this is all about. My name is Javon Gord. I am one of the Arch Mages, aka department head for Mages as well, and I'm also recently a new member of the board of directors for all of MAGFest. So my job is now everything. But it's all good. It's all a blessing. So I'm super excited to be able to share a stage with all these lovely people, and also I think this is our first time as Arch Mages addressing the public, and I go first. It's insane.
I feel so cool.
Yeah.
I did choose this, right? I could have said nothing. Anywho, so yes, I'm super excited to do this. And so what I'm going to do, I introduce myself, and so I'm going to allow my lovely Arch Mages to also introduce themselves, and also the rest of the panelists. But I just want to give a brief kind of like introduction to this is Mages. Mages stands for the Music and Gaming Education Symposium. We're going to do a little bit of like the deep dive or history of Mages, and then talk about like future initiatives, stuff like that. And we have our lovely panelists to also inform you about some cool, amazing stuff as well that they've done. And yeah, so are you all excited, ready to learn, shake and bake, rock and roll?
Yeah. Yes.
Woo!
Bet. All right, cool beans. I'm winging this. All right, so you want to go first, or one of you all want to go first? Or have them go first? All right. See, I told you gotta keep me on point. All right, so we're gonna do all of us, the Mages. So that is us, right? And then the origins of magic. I love these titles, by the way. And then the keynote conversation, which is these lovely folks on stage, and then the crystal ball as well. So yes. So again, you met me. I'm Javon. Please feel free to say hello, provide me water, X, Y, and Z stuff. So I'm also a video game researcher. So my research actually focuses on the digital representation of Black individuals, as also lived experiences. So I've done stuff related to Black joy in games, digital representation in games, and so much more. And Alex and I actually went to Indiana University together. He got his doctorate degree, and I left. That's the whole story in and of itself. All right, and so I'm going to have my colleague Agave say some words as well, because I'm not going to introduce you. You got to do some work.
You don't need to. Okay, so I'll make it brief. Hi, everybody. So, Agave, I'll say there's big things to know is I studied genocide, so that's fun. And I'm working on a doctorate in educational leadership. My interest when it comes to Mages and when it comes to gaming education is my background is special education. And so my interest has always kind of been like, how do I create community around students through gaming? Because I have a lot of kids who have been on the spectrum, and for whatever reason, you put kids on the Smash Bros together, it doesn't matter what language they speak, if they speak at all, they're having a good time. So for that reason, I'm always interested in how we build communities within that, and also how we kind of deal with the drama that comes from having people together, and therefore the conflict analyst piece. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. My name is Alex. As Javon said, I have a PhD in informatics. I also serve as one of the Archmages here. My academic interests are a little different. I'm a historian of technology, so I tend to think about the systems and people and places that make society function, and how they have done that in the past, and how they're going to do that in the future. And so my interest in Mages is, in part, to look at the systems and structures that help keep our convention running. I'll be presenting on a little bit of the history of our department, which includes support for Mages' vision and mission as a whole. For those of you who aren't aware, MAGFest is a 501c3. We are a charitable organization. We do support a variety of local charities, in addition to, of course, our educational mission. And for our purposes here, Mages is a big part of that. We want to teach if you are willing to learn. That's not to say that all panels are not educational, but we try to take it to the next level.
All right. Well said. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
super funny. All right, so now I'm gonna have our keynote speakers introduce themselves. So who's on this side? Okay, so Vincent, go for it.
Sure thing. So, I am, by and large, a programmer, not a researcher, not an educator. I've just been a professional programmer for about 10 years. Also a enthusiast for game design. I've studied a decent bit, not in the formal sense, but just being inspired by sequelitis to think more deeply about how games work, how you can put them together, interesting ideas about them, etc. More recently, I've also been getting into voice acting, inspired also by some stuff from MAGES last year. And did I have anything else that I wrote down?
Game Jam?
Oh yeah, I've done game jams, including the Global Game Jam at MAGFest some number of years ago. Made a board game, not necessarily a board game, the deductive board. What are those called again? The ones like Werewolf.
Deduction game?
Yeah. Those games, like Werewolf, Werewolf type of game at Global Game Jam, which was a ton of fun. And yeah, that's my background.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Meg, by all means.
Thank you. Hi, so my name is Meg Eden Kuyatt. I teach creative writing typically at the university level. So my background is really in, I was going to say it's in literature, but actually in undergrad, I designed my own major, which was the intersection of creative writing with cognitive science. So later in life, I got diagnosed as autistic. And so I've always been interested in how the brain works. And now with kind of thinking about games, I'm really interested in how autistic folks are represented in games, how we represent mental health in games. But as a writer, I'm also interested in narrative design in games. I'm always thinking for my books of how can I learn from video games to write creatively and show more, tell less, so that my readers can be active participants. So predominantly what I do now is I write books with neurodivergent protagonists, often in nerdy contexts or some speculative element. If you're interested in hearing more about my books afterwards, feel free to come over and talk to me. I've also got bookmarks.
Thank you so much. Grace?
Hi, my name's Grace Fiacco. I am currently one of the executive directors of the Virtual Video Game Orchestra, which is a completely online community, like group of musicians who come together, record music, and we create some really lovely videos that we share on YouTube. So check us out. Originally, I started out as a physicist, so I actually I just left my PhD program, and I'm trying to pivot to get more into games, looking more into project management type things, organization, communication, leadership, all of that good stuff in the context of games. So that's where I'm currently trying to head into now.
Wait, you left your PhD program recently?
Yeah.
I support you. I support
This
you.
summer.
I'm going back into one, but I support the initial leading.
Yeah, it was very recently.
Yeah.
I'm a free person now.
By all means, Justin.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Levine. I'm also one of the executive directors at VVGo. I'm also full-time software engineer at Microsoft. I'm working on Xbox for some game developer tooling. It's cool to be here because my first MAGFest was in 2019, first con in general. Me, Grace, and I think 8 others of us from the Rochester Institute of Technology's Games Symphony Orchestra came, met MAGES, gave a few panels, didn't realize how exhausting MAGFest would be. Yeah, but it's great to be able to kind of give back to that first introduction and contribute to this community.
I love what you just said about being exhausted at your first match, because I'm currently being flamed out by the executive director of the Black and Gaming Foundation. She was like, Javon, you didn't say that MAGFest had all of this going. And I'm like, it's the time to explore. And I also just forgot. So yes, well, thank you so much.
It's better that you don't.
Yeah,
know
it's
what
just a
you're
lot.
getting into.
All right, Agave's doing the second part? You're doing the second part? All right, cool beans. Stage transition.
So we'll come up and head down a couple times for this, but I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about where our department came from, because Well, let me get a show of hands. How many of you were aware that MAGFest had this kind of like educational symposium / sort of mini academic conference thing, right? And don't be shy. Like if you, yeah, like if, okay, I see some like half hands. I see people like, not me. I see some people who like, yes.
In the program, you see some panels are panels and some panels are MAGES panels.
Right. But what does that mean, right? Well, if you're here, we're going to tell you. But yes, so MAGFest does have an educational symposium. It used to be sort of a larger part of the event. Unfortunately, the pandemic was not kind to MAGES as it was for so many of us. But what we're doing with this keynote this year is sort of a reintroduction, sort of a rebirth. So you will start to see more Express MAGES content in the future. You will see more presenters. So there are special MAGFest guests, right, who you may have seen already, who you might be planning to see. We will also start having special MAGES guests, who might be people from industry, people from academia, people who are leaders in their respective fields, coming to MAGFest to talk about their work, to talk about the science of teaching, to talk about learning. All right, so not a lot of you have heard of MAGES, but that's okay. That's why we're doing this, and we hope to grow back to our former glory. How many of you visit the MAGFest website that I've got displayed here? Right, it's also okay. Don't be honest. I don't all the time because I'll be honest. A lot of the links on our own page were broken for a while, and so you could go, but you could not leave. It was the Hotel California of the MAGFest website. But if you wander through the MAGFest website a little bit, you might see. Under About, what is MAGFest? And if you go to what is MAGFest, you'll see this long string of text, which talks about how we are a 501c3. That means that we are a charitable organization recognized by the IRS. It means we have certain privileges, but it also means we, as an organization, have certain responsibilities. And so for us in MAGES, while MAGFest seeks to promote public appreciation of video game music, art, and history, to preserve for posterity the culture of and history of video games, which I think we can agree MAGFest does a pretty good job, even if it is tiring sometimes, we in MAGES focus on this first one here, right? To educate the public about video game music, art, and history. But what does it mean to do that? Well, really, any part of MAGFest could do that. Whether you're in the arcades, just playing, a Galaga cabinet that actually powers on, right? Exciting. Mm-hmm. Whether you're listening to artists performing their music that has some important lineage for you, right? You're participating in that. You are part of game history for even being at MAGFest. But for MAGES, we, as I said, try to go a little farther. We like to provide a platform for education around video games, video game music, and the gaming industry. So if you're here to really dive deep into the history of the trombone, into why FromSoft games have all of these obtuse references to mythology that themselves are confusing in an already confusing game that really makes you dig down to figure out what the heck is going on by reading all of your lore items, we want to provide a platform for that. So if you go back to your main page and then go to what to do, we actually inhabit a little part of the website called Learn, because we like to do that. And Learn will currently take you here, but this is a graveyard. This could itself be a From Software level because all of these links are dead. I checked myself. One of them doesn't even go to a 404 page. It can't even get that far. But not all is lost. There is a new version of the website that should be live right now, or if not, will be in the near future, that has more information as well about how you can get involved, who we are, and what it is that we do. But MAGES has been here for quite a while. We just haven't been very visible. So what happened in the past to even allow this to exist? So before there was MAGES, there was something called Gaming Intellectuals. And this was a group that debuted at MAGFest 9, which was back in 2011, so a fair ways in the past. We were not yet at the Gaylord. This was back when we were in this convention center in, I believe, Alexandria. And what happened was panels started to crop up in the submission process that were being proposed by academics. And actually, I haven't done this yet. In my panel yesterday, I did. I like interactivity, so I apologize if you're about to get some exercise. But one more show of hands. How many of you are in some way educators, interested in education? You're currently a student. Okay, so a lot of you. People like you started submitting panels, and the panels department was like, this is actually really interesting. We should provide a space for this, because MAGFest is a place for indulging in your hobbyist spirit, however that might be. Whether it is music, whether it is games, whether it is going through the guts of an old arcade cabinet, we want to empower you to do what you enjoy. And it turned out that there were a non-trivial amount of people who wanted to learn, right, on a pretty deep level, and we wanted to provide for that. So Gaming Intellectuals comes into being in 2012 for MAGFest 10. MAGFest moves to the Gaylord, and if you've all seen the sign out front, it turns out that moving to the Gaylord to, allow us to have enough space isn't really working anymore. We are selling out year after year now. We're almost too big for here, which is exciting, right? But a nice little infrastructural problem. So MAGFest 10, we're at the Gaylord. And then at MAGFest 12, we switch from the name Gaming Intellectuals to the somewhat more inclusive and also inclusive of all of our topic areas, MAGES, which stands for the Music and Gaming Educational Symposium, i.e. a place where you can come and listen to professionals, academics, industry folks who have a lot of experience, really take a deep dive into their own field. And also a place for you to learn about learning itself. So we hope to provide a place for educators, whether you're K-12, whether you're post-secondary, like Agave, if you're working in special education, for people to come and maybe get a little bit of professional advice as well at your otherwise zany, silly game convention. So here at MAGFest 22, we are now ready to welcome you and hopefully give you a little sense of what MAGES can be, with the offer then at the end of this panel through a QR code that we will show on our big screen here to join our Discord server. And if you really are interested in keeping in touch or learning more about what an educational academic conference can be at MAGFest, you can come and interact with us year-round and join us for that. But for the moment, I will pass it off to our keynote presenters. We have a couple questions ready for them, and maybe I can just launch the first one and see if I'm still needed after that. But I think for many people, and perhaps this is true for you, you get to MAGFest in a lot of different ways. I arrived first when I was in my PhD program because Javon, who had been a consummate MAGFester for a very long time, said, Alex, all your research that you're doing in your PhD program is going behind a $40 paywall that no one is ever going to pierce. What if you came and presented your work to people who actually care? And I said, well, that's novel. Are we allowed to do that? And it turns out, yes. And I was sold. I got involved, and I love it now. But I wonder if maybe our panelists, maybe starting from right next to me here and moving down the line, Justin, do you want to talk about how you got involved with MAGFest broadly?
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned briefly about how I got in MAGFest. So back in my undergrad, Rochester Institute of Technology, I founded a game symphony orchestra, which, for those who don't know, is an orchestra where we play game music. It really kind of exploded in popularity very quickly. I think we had about 80, 60, something like that when I left.
From 20, 30 members to 60 within a year to now they can't fit on the stage that RIT has. So yeah. It's been growing a lot. It's awesome.
And so we really thought that was somewhat unique, but little did we know the entire world of game symphony orchestras that exists around the country and the world. And so we came to MAGES largely talking about our orchestra, the organization, but also kind of taking the opportunity to just do panels on random things we're interested in, to learn ourselves and just have interesting conversations with folks. And I'm sure everyone who's here knows how just addicting coming to MAGFest really is. You meet people you never think you would meet. You meet people that you look up to who are just friends that you're going to get a drink with, Yeah, and just, I don't know, ever since we came, it's really just kind of been a little life-changing, and just seeing how serious the passion and the excitement for games is, and more than that, the desire to just make it grow and propagate in all these different directions. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of my decisions around music and games and that passion is centered around, like, what are those intersections with people going to be? Where are those communities going to be formed? And yeah, I think that's kind of it for me.
Well, 90% of that story is exactly what I was going to say because we both discovered MAGFest together as members of the RIT Game Symphony Orchestra. But I don't know, as someone who didn't like do game design or a game design major at RIT, or someone who isn't in like education, I came from a very different background. And I mean, like, I don't know if this is even the question that's being asked, but I'm going to say it anyways. Like, MAGES gave me an opportunity to explore a side of myself that I didn't even know I had. As someone in physics, that's not a very necessarily open-minded field or creative field in the way you would think. And so, coming from growing up where games wasn't very prevalent in my life, going to a school for something that's not very very, very different from like games and the kind of people that you meet at these kinds of conventions. This was very life-changing, and it led me down these paths where now I am leaving my old field and trying to get into this kind of field and this kind of like community a lot more seriously. And I think that's a very, very special thing that I never would have discovered without things like MAGFest.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really cool seeing the history of MAGFest, because I was realizing 2012 was our first year here. And so I was like, oh, wow, we were here for the first year at the Gaylord. So funny story. So when I was an undergrad, I was in the UMD Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Oh. And this was the year, I believe, that Nobuo Uematsu was at MAGFest, and we were going to get to perform a Final Fantasy song for him. And I was just an idiot. I didn't process any of this. And my friends were like, we're going to perform for frickin' Nobuo Uematsu. And I'm like, cool, but it's the woodworking festival weekend, and I'm also a woodworker, so like, one track mind. I was like, okay, but I'm going to go to that. So maybe that was 2011. And then my friend from the GSO came to me and he was like, Meg, you don't understand. MAGFest is like the most amazing con ever. You need to go. And I was like, cool, I'll think about that, but it's the weekend of the woodworking festival. So like, I don't really care. But then he said this like 20 times. It took a while because as you understand, coming to MAGFest, there's no other con quite like this. This is such unique energy, and it's hard to explain that to somebody. But I think in 2012, you and I, we came for a day. We came for one day, and we realized
that was a mistake.
Yeah, we went, we have made a huge mistake. First off, I should have been here last year, but also we should have gotten the whole weekend. And so since 2013, we came here for every weekend. And after a couple years of being at MAGFest and just absolutely loving this, I started discovering the MAGES panels. That was what I was gravitating towards when I looked through Guidebook, or I don't know if it was always on Guidebook, whatever. I can't remember how we used to see that. But those were the panels I kept finding, and I was like, this is cool. And this intersects with my excitement. Like you said, it's such a unique intersection. And it's, I created my own major, so I've always been interested in these intersections of like the humanities and the sciences. And so I basically just found Tim eventually and was like, I'd like to be a part of this. And Tim was like, cool, you're part of the secret society now. So that's kind of how it worked.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, MAGES is a secret society. Invite only, which I don't think is actually true, considering it sounds like academics can contact y'all if you're an academic and propose cool ideas to talk about. MAGFest, I got introduced to MAGFest same time as she did, because we were dating and now married. But it truly is just a special convention. It was the first time I really felt like just so many intersections of so many interests I had really came together. Like what you were talking about really is what I felt like of just, I would listen to almost exclusively video game music. I've listened to the Kingdom Hearts 2 Japanese soundtrack. I don't even know how many times.
We could sing the songs in Japanese to each other.
I love
singing
That's how we knew we were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anybody else know the Japanese versions of the songs to Kingdom Hearts 2 or listen to those?
Just us.
Just us?
Cool.
Okay, we can be the cool weirdos.
Utada Hikaru, like
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
Well, not just those, but the yeah,
Oh
yeah.
God, no.
Yes,
No.
those versions.
Don't even mention that. That's the part of the game I want to forget.
Side note, the voice actor for Donald Duck in Japanese is incredible, and if you have never heard any of that before, go listen to that. It's awesome.
Or just in the songs where he's like.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. But, you know, coming to this place where all these people are, you know, dressing as their favorite characters. There's music being played all the time of my favorite songs, and there's just so many different cool things to do at any given moment. There's always like 5 panels I want to go to at any given hour. I think that was even before they had things like the arcade and whatnot. Like, there's so much that's expanded to that's just so awesome. And even beyond that, I just remember that there was always these panels that I was always gravitated toward that were really cool, talking about more intricacies of game design, or like they're talking about the intricacies of From Software stories and all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of gravitated toward those panels, and I realized, wait, this is called Mages 1, Mages 2? What's that? Like,
Yeah, back in the day, these panel rooms were distinctly Mages rooms.
yeah, it wasn't just panels 5, 6, 7. It was legitimately called Mages 1 and 2 on the schedule. Yeah, you remember. And those are always the ones I really enjoyed the most. And so when I got the opportunity to participate in that, that was really cool to me. Mostly through her. She's the one who got in, and then I kind of like snuck in the back door because she's the educator and I'm just the programmer.
I think there's something that I kind of want to add, like, on this conversation. So, me and Grace are both a little bit. We're in a bit of like an interesting position because we're not as much of professionals as some of the other Mages panelists who are here. And so I feel very thankful that I was brought into Mages the first year that I was, because I don't know how other people deal with this, but I've always really kind of had a lot of imposter syndrome when I like kind of touch on any new kind of community, and I'm thinking, if I'm not studying this, I feel like I can't have the right conversation with it. And so, you know, I think if I came to MAGFest on my own and I saw Mages, joining would have been a little bit intimidating. But it's really not, because the thing about these conferences is people just like to talk. And if you're interested in what they're interested in, like, you're going to have a panel. People are going to learn. You're going to learn from each other. Like, when you're a panelist, you're learning just as much as everyone else is.
Yep.
And then you go in the hallway after, you have your little conversations, and you learn that much more. And it just kind of like stems some seeds for what you could talk about in the future. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of like highlight that little bit, that there's really nothing to be intimidated to. Like, if you are interested in the academic side of games, just start talking, and
It might cause you to
People are
change
gonna
your
be
career.
Yeah. Listen, if you have a panel, if you want to do a panel about the history of the Barbie game where you could print dresses, which was an actual panel, and that panel slapped, that's the kind of cool thing that we really enjoy.
On that note, we may mention this again later, but tomorrow there's a Mages networking event. And so if these kind of things excite you, I'd really encourage you to come to that and kind of get plugged in with people.
Yeah, and it really is. It's about that. As much as, you know, we often have presenters who might have, you know, decades of experience in their field, they had to start somewhere too, and quite often we like to be a place where that can start for you, potentially. I wonder if you guys might want to share any favorite memories of Mage's experience since those, you know, early days for you. Anything that you did, were involved with, that was particularly meaningful, maybe to give some ideas if people are interested in getting involved but aren't quite sure how.
I need to remember that far back.
I think probably one of your favorite things as well is we used to have a thing called the Mages Tea Room, where it was...
yes.
Yeah, which was specifically for the group of people involved with Mages, panelists and whatnot, where it was just kind of like a more quiet room where you could just chill, get some tea. They had tons of types, and just get to know your fellow panelists. That was always kind of the most fun part for me is getting to know everybody else, because everybody is just really cool. Getting to build some level of connection with those people over multiple years, because I may never talk with them outside of coming to MAGFest, but I do remember them, and yeah, it was really cool to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, historically, when people had an idea for a panel, they would submit a form and invite if people wanted to add on to that. So I really love that collaborative
yes.
nature. So you could jump in with someone else. And we had kind of two different types of panels. So we had ones like this that are a little bit more formal of the panelists at the front. And then we had more collaborative ones that were almost like a circle and a conversation. So I remember
love those.
having one on kind of like tools for mental health or for neurodivergent folks for getting through cons. And we had someone from Extra Life, I think, that gave some resources. And so that kind of thing was really neat. It was kind of like a brainstorm of everyone coming together and sharing.
I don't think I have much to add on all of that.
Do we still have any of those late night circle people telling stories panels anymore, or because those were really
I
fun?
forgot about that. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think you're thinking a little differently. It was more MAGES conversations.
Maybe.
Or I don't know. What
It just made me think of that, because there was just an entire, I think, type of panel, at least 1 year, maybe 2 years, where it was kind of like set up in a ring and people were just kind of talking about stuff. One I'm specifically remembering is a bunch of really experienced game developers telling stories that can't be recorded. It was that kind of feeling of just more of a conversation, more of just on a round table.
I can think of one panel that like stands out to me a lot. So we've given a few panels that are a little bit more broad, like have a wider appeal to people. Like I did one on the history of jazz, looking at video games. I did one on like the history of the Legend of Zelda theme. Like people are probably going to want to see that. But I think the panel that I'm most proud of was one where I was talking about music theory and its influence on Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which is a very specific game that I'm probably one of the now I know one of the two people who like that game. So it was like in this room, but it was half of the room, and we were just like in a little circle of chairs.
I had
So
to
there
record
was-
that on your phone.
there was
'cause
maybe-
there was no like recording.
Maybe 15 people in that room, and it's like so small, and I'm like, no one's gonna care about this. But like, it was super engaged. It was pretty much a conversation the entire time. And the funny thing is, there's some people who came to that panel that like I still know that I just run into, not just here, but also like John and someone that works here at MAGFest. Like I see him at MAGWest all the time, and it's just, if you think you have a specific interest, like you probably don't. I mean, we went to video game trivia yesterday, and I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about video game music. Some games came up, never even heard of. Like, I wasn't sure they were real. So, yeah, just nothing's too specific, nothing's too broad. If it's interesting, you'll make connections.
By the way, I want to tangent off of that slightly, because I'm very interested to hear from the audience after the panel. I've always been interested in weird game mechanics, so Nuts and Bolts made me think of that, because Banjo-Kazooie is traditionally a 3D platformer, and then suddenly it's a car building game, which is like very interesting and cool, and they had so many different neat things that they put into that, but it wasn't really a Banjo-Kazooie game. It was just a really cool side game that was skinned for Banjo-Kazooie. And I love learning more about games that are just kind of weird like that, just doing weird things, doing unexpected things that are interesting, maybe kind of not great. One example I can think of is Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 had a lot of cross progression of classes. So if you leveled up White Mage, you could then take like Barrier or Heal as a warrior. Which is objectively kind of a bad thing, because then you have to level up classes that you don't actually want to play the class you want to play in order to be efficient. But it's cool because you can do all these weird builds and cross progression and whatnot, kind of like Guild Wars and being able to mix two classes. So if you know more about obscure stuff, weird stuff like that, I would love to hear more about that. That is something I love.
That's a holdover from Final Fantasy XI's sub-job system. They were kind of hybridizing it out to the system, but they kind
Oh,
makes
interesting.
Yeah, sometimes
That's cool.
I haven't played
sometimes-
enough of 11 to know about that, so thank you.
11 doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, it does.
Do people play it?
Yeah.
Really?
It's I think it's still getting slow, but some amount of updates.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Does it go up to level 70?
I think it's interesting, like when you hear like there's a reason why that decision was in a game, whether it's good or not. We gave a panel yesterday talking about exploration, and
In this
basically
room.
in a lot of ways, we think Final Fantasy 16 is largely flawed because it's very like open area, open world. But I think a lot of that was because of a reaction to Final Fantasy 15 and still trying to include a lot of that stuff. So with that history, it makes a little more sense. Should they have just cut it?
Yes.
I would say yes, but who knows? But yeah, it's like you start learning little bits from different games and seeing how it could have influenced other ones, and that's always interesting.
Yeah, and MAGES participants should always feel free to pursue that, whether it's, kind of formally or informally on a panel like this, whether it's, communicating with each other on one of the platforms we provide. We really just do want to have a space where you can kind of freeform think, which is not to say, again, that you can't think at other panels, but there are definitely some panels I go to where, like, my brain doesn't turn off, but it's just overwhelmed by the content, right? And I'm along for the ride, I'm surfing, I'm having a good time, but I don't remember much of it afterwards. Whereas MAGES, we want to provide a foundation, right, for people to kind of build on a little bit. It's worked for you guys, right? You found pieces to latch onto that have been beneficial for you, and that's, at the end of the day, that's all I want. I just want people to find something that they can take away and, build themselves up from. So maybe quickly, before we get into, like, what else can you see that's like MAGES content this year, we can throw questions out to the audience very briefly. Two, little statements from us. Please come and cook. We are always interested in new conversations, in topics and points of view. What Justin said about imposter syndrome is certainly true. I mean, getting a PhD just makes it worse. Suddenly you have a
Oh, yeah.
suddenly
But
you have a
know
PhD,
more.
but you're still this rando, and everyone else has like tweed jackets and is using probably too verbose language to describe that they understand why the slug moves that way now, right? Like, which matters, but like, just tell it.
Spiritual level.
Tell it plainly. So please don't feel like this can't be a place for you if you've not done this before, or if you have any kind of anxiety about that, because we also have that anxiety. We can just like share that or something. That's probably healthy. And also, we will be available year round. One thing I love about MAG is that it's like 12 hours, 24 hours, 36. It just keeps going. But then there's time afterwards to kind of cool down. But then I sometimes feel like I kind of lose touch with some people that I will then not see until next year. Whereas MAGES, we really do try to provide a community where you can keep in touch. Maybe we'll have a Jackbox night periodically. Would you like to hold emergency meetings with us? I mean, don't, because I wasn't there. But, like, we can do stuff like that throughout the year together. We're going to be planning meetups in person in various locations if you're interested in that. So if you love MAGFest and the crazy, wacky sauce, that makes it run, we will be supplying small amounts of that sauce year-round if you're interested in that. So really quickly, are there any questions about kind of the mechanics of MAGES or what we do? Yes?
I've been doing panels for years, and I've always seen MAGES, but I never knew exactly what it was. How do you designate you want to be a MAGES panel? Like, is there a specific way that when you're doing panel submissions, do you go through a different portal, or do you have a doctor?
Wait, you
Yeah.
have to be a doctor to be up here? I need to leave.
That's just a funny joke, because when we first started with MAGES, it was just ironic that all three of us happened to be in doctoral programs. I was like, oh, so we just raised the bar on all content going forward. But no, the actual question will probably be answered by this person.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so really nothing is needed to submit beyond a cool idea. Because at the end of the day, as in a classroom, the instructor at the front might have more experience, but they don't necessarily know more about everything. In fact, they definitely don't know more about everything, so it should be collaborative. Yes, you could just submit with a MAGES tag. There's a drop-down to kind of, list what you want. But if you really want to get involved, on that new version of the website that I told you about that is not a graveyard, there will be an opportunity to send us an email saying, hey, I'm interested in presenting this content. We'll get back to you. If we like it, if we think it's cool, we will then give you access to our internal submissions portal, which is a Google form where you can kind of list, hey, what do I want to do? Do I want collaborators? If you think you want collaborators, but you don't know yet, that's fine. The form output is visible to everyone who submitted. So if you submit something and someone else submits something similar, you can get together. And then finally, we can add you to the Discord server as well, where you'll see sort of a constant stream of the people who are thinking about what to do. But yeah, so there's a little bit of extra work, apologies, of just kind of getting in touch with us before the panel submission process. But the upside to that is that you then have basically submitted your panel however many months in advance of the rush, and then we will work internally to program you and schedule you. So there's a little bit more of a personal touch because we like that kind of like intellectual community. But yeah, at minimum you could submit normally, but beyond that, there are multiple portals that will be available to you to submit as well.
I was also going to say that we do workshop panels as they're submitted. I think this is one of the things I've enjoyed most about being a department head for MAGES. I mean, just as an educator, like if a kid says they want to do a class on like whatever Minecraft new thing or Fortnite thing it is, I'm like, okay, well, let's actually talk about it. Let's see what that looks like. And if you feel like you have an idea, I'm great. Like you can ask them. I'll just throw things in the Discord and it'll be the loosest idea. Sometimes it'll just be one word, and I'm just like, pizza, and then we'll just run from that, and then we'll actually make something go for that. So if you have an idea that you want to workshop, and maybe you need like support on like how to make it more educational. Again, my entire background is like curriculum, understanding, that type of stuff. If you want it to be more structured that way, we can help that happen. You don't have to be the professional. You don't have to have written any dissertation or even a thesis to have a topic be potentially presented. So be loose and be open with it. That's what I was going to add.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yeah.
I believe that it was mentioned that tomorrow there was going to be like a meetup.
Yes.
Could that be for anyone to attend? Someone that's interested in possibly getting involved in this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Assuming that's obviously on the schedule.
Yeah, the networking social. I think it's like 2 p.m.
Speed
tomorrow.
networking,
Yes.
I think. Speed networking. Maybe
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So we're actually we're gonna break the rules. We're gonna move all of these chairs that are in straight row lines, and we're gonna turn them into circles, and we're gonna like actually sit and chat about who we are and what we like, and rather than kind of people up here on stage and then everyone else in the audience. So the fire marshal is cool with it. MAGFest is cool with it. So we're gonna make waves, and by waves I mean arcs and curves.
How is that supposed to work, by the way? Are we doing it by topic? Are we just organizing people randomly? Like,
Yeah, so we'll have a little bit more info tomorrow, but there will be different topics so you can connect with people that are in that field or have common interests. So yeah, it's beneficial from the MAGES sense, but really just if you want to meet people that also like the same kind of disciplines as you, it's a great thing for that too.
Yeah, we hope to be a place where you can kind of meet other attendees as well. Obviously, it's possible if you're in line for something or you're kind of, just mingling out in the hallway, but a little more structured way to say like, hey, I'm in game design and I want to do more of that. I'm a music educator. I'd like to learn more about that. We will connect you with folks with similar experiences. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, well, Agave, you have a microphone. Do you want to come up and talk a little bit about our other offerings?
No. I do. No, like so a fun thing with me. Also, as a SPED person, I also actually do have the D's, which is ADHDs, so I do not sit for very long. So that's why I started stretching in the corner, because I just need to work out the sillies. But I will say, also for me, I don't necessarily like lectures because I like conversations with folks. So I want to ask everyone in this room, is there something that you wish people knew more about? And I want to hear from the peoples. I saw that half hand.
She can verify that my soapbox is color. Color, yes.
color.
I'm a
Actually.
color theory professor,
Oh.
and color is like my deepest passion. And sometimes I can not even notice when I'm going into a long conversation about color. And it's one of those things where I run into a lot of people who are not confident with either how to use color, how to analyze color, how to understand, or whether color psychology, color meaning, define color, both
Okay. And now for the follow-up, who would be interested in learning more about that?
That's cool.
There we go. All right, now another
Color
same
theory
question.
in
All
games
right.
sounds like a cool topic.
Exactly. This again
How-
engagement.
Yeah, what's the color theory for like Breath of the Wild? There's so many design elements to that game that people have researched. I don't know if I've heard anything about how color is used.
Our color use, because the background that I have is actually is.
I'm gonna pause right there because I can already tell you're about to charge up. you are about to launch a panel right now. But yes, you were about to raise your hand. What's something you wish people knew more about?
Professional wrestling.
Professional wrestling.
Professional wrestling as a storytelling medium.
Ooh. Give us a
Yeah, professional
slight
wrestling.
example. 500 words or less.
I think everyone here knows that professional wrestling is, big time theater time. And in fact, I actually wrote a final paper in the theater class about professional wrestling as a medium. And my at the time girlfriend was very confused about that. She didn't know theater. But yeah, all down to the stages, the characters, role play. There's just long-term stories being told and character development, character progression or regression.
You got a comment?
One of the examples of storytelling within professional wrestling deals a lot about one character's mental health and how it kind of just deteriorates over time and how he's losing friends and then how he kind of ends up finding better friends and ends up winning a title because of friendship. Very
You got a
So
comment?
one of my kind of like big influences in thinking about the educational space is this YouTuber, Daryl Talks Games, who he talks he talks about games with a psych perspective and typically brings up like APA papers and things like that to cite. And he does have a video about how the stories of professional wrestling are very similar to games. Have you seen it? Yeah. Okay. Because you're saying that, and I'm just like immediately thinking of that.
Before I forget, you had a comment.
Yes. There was a video, I think it went viral, of during the COVID times when professional wrestling arenas could not have audiences in them. But, the professional wrestlers are contractors. If they don't wrestle, they don't get paid. So they still have the match and they still televised it, but it was completely silent in the arena. So they're still doing their microphone stuff in the ring, and suddenly it becomes like this minimalist, like almost legitimate theater.
Huh.
They're still doing like all the intensity and stuff, but without the crowd, it really kind of brings it down to its elements, and you realize what they're actually doing.
It's real when that happened. When the Not Black when first happened, and when they were like kind of in front of no crowd, it felt very, like an actual broader theater kind of thing. Like a mile long.
So who would like to learn more about that? See, and there you go. That's pretty much the simple, but that's the part I'm trying to get to. With the mages, at least when it comes to the big three areas, again, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to standing in front of a board. So, so obviously we have the big three areas. We have the music and gaming, ergo mages. But then we also have the educational. And educational can look kind of like anything. It could look like wrestling. It could look like color theory. And honestly, I would even argue that color theory would have a huge impact in gaming, especially when it comes to like accessibility, the whole notion of contrast, the whole notion of like visual impairments and everything like that. That would also very much fall in that area. But all of these panels fall into this larger area of like, we want people to have a deeper knowledge of what it is that we're talking about. So teaching video game music to non-musicians. We actually have a college professor, who I'm going to pull up right now, is an associate professor at the University of Portland, is going to discuss like music game theory and how you can actually teach that even if you're not necessarily a teacher per se. This guy also does it. I'm pulling you out. Yeah, I know. Because you also do, well, you do audio engineering and the work that you, audio production. Yes, so we have people who are college professors and we have people who are not. They're just people who are of all skill levels, but all types of experience. Press play, how video game music reinforces heroic gender types. And that one we're talking more so about the video game music tells a lot about the characters we play and the levels we play and composing. Talk about music composition and take a look at the composer's brain as to how they make these decisions when we're trying to decide what music plays for which characters. So that type of a little bit of psychology with that. Once more from the top, piano from software skill and transference with big words. Make sure I got the right spelling of that one. Yes. Oh, okay. So there will be a analysis of how games like Sekiro, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, as well as works by Mozart, Schumann, and Ravel can all be processed either through solo practice, classical practice, and etc. So I'm sure there's a much better explanation. You music people probably know more about what that's like. But again, music, gaming, the decolonizing the digispace, I know that one happens, what, in like another 2 hours? Are you familiar with that one? But no, so how about Black one? That one, no. So that is going to be a conversation I'm really excited about. There's going to be myself, Trinidad Black, who's the executive director of the Black and Gaming Foundation, which is also present as well. I'm also on the Black and Gaming D&D chapter committee, which is actually having its debut here at MAGFest. I wonder how that got through. And then Michelle? Okay, sorry. High school friend. And then on that panel is also the absolutely amazing and tour de force Dominic Sonic Fox. Dominic Sonic Fox is a fighting game player and has won like all the major tournaments, including being a 7-time EVO world champion as well, which is I think a record that they still hold. And so yeah, so that is 6:30 tonight. Please come out. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic time.
That dude is so talented. Oh my gosh.
Much talent.
Although I was there when he got dethroned as the champion in Skullgirls at shoot, what's the big one in Chicago?
Frosty Fausting.
Not Frosty Faustings. It's a huge tournament. Why am I blanking?
The fighting game one.
Yeah, the huge fighting game tournament convention. Why am I blanking on that?
The one that's there.
Combo Breaker.
Combo
Yes.
Breaker, yeah.
Yes. I was there when he got dethroned for only 1 year, and then he practiced hard and kicked butt. But 1 year he got dethroned, and that was awesome.
See, I love these type of conversations. I'll close up because we're already at the end of time. It's already like 1:30. But I'll say the big one that I know I'm looking forward to is the 9:30 a.m. Playing with Policy, Envisioning Safer, More Inclusive Spaces. 5 minutes left. Gotcha. So there's actually a professor out in Carleton University in Canada. And when the Cosplays Not Consent movement came out, we started a much larger conversation about what is safety and inclusion in con spaces specifically. So we started a larger process to understand, like, what do the policies of different cons even have to say about harassment? And you'd be surprised how many don't have anything to say about harassment. And therefore, even with the ones that do say harassment, what exactly is the language? What is the meaning? Does it actually transfer into any form of action? So his entire research, and he's still like in the process of doing the data, is about like what is the most effective way to write about a harassment policy when it comes to con spaces. So if you're interested in that conversation, interested in that dialogue, I would definitely say show up, assuming you're sober enough to be there. But I will concede my time. I think slide. Oh, that was it. I thought we had the Discord thing up.
It's
It's
one
coming.
more.
It's coming.
Okay.
We can do
Okay.
it for now. There you go.
Is
Yeah,
everything-
I was gonna say like gazing into the orb, because this is the future. The future is this Discord.
The future is QR codes, which are also the past.
Yes, because we want people to be engaged, and we want you to join up. We want you to join the hall of debates. We want you to see our great library of research articles. We want you to be able to continue this dialogue. Hopefully, we'll have more presentation. If you are an academic, if you're thinking about getting into the field of academia or joining the ivory tower, people who want to have your dissertation theses reviewed, Alex can do all of that by himself, and we can
Hold on a second.
But again, dialogue, discussion, community. There you go. Any other notes from anyone?
Well, yeah, so the other note is on the topic of imposter syndrome. Please let me know if the QR code doesn't work, because I double and triple checked it. I'm seeing head bop. What is it giving you?
There's a time
Oh,
limit.
the time.
See, I set the link to not expire, but clearly that didn't work. Okay, so let me do some magic in the last. That is the right word. That is the right word. Let me do some magic in the last few minutes we have here, and then
Can't
that
really
should.
change an existing QR code.
Yeah, the
unfortunately.
QR code will be me.
We'll get a new one.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But yes, the Discord is new for us, so there will be a few growing pains like this. But our goal is to, once again, just provide a place for us to have the conversations we just had, right? It doesn't have to be just an hour here at MAGFest. If you're up in the middle of the night and like, I just need to know, why did the wrestler do that? there's a space for it, right? Just come to the Discord. Anyways, big thank you from me. Big thank you to our panelists for joining us.
For having me.
So again, I just thank you all for being here. I'm super excited. I'm super happy. I know, because you annoy me so much. Anywho, but no, I just want to thank you all. I was introduced to Mages in 2017, so the tea room and all that stuff. I completely remember. Head Mage Tim will always be Head Mage Tim, even today he's like, you're more of a mage than I am. I was like, no. So I truly find it a blessing to be a part of the a part of the fold. Again, I'm super excited to be able to bring in more people. And yes, if you are someone who has dearly departed from one field and wants to step into the beautiful field of game studies, by all means, chat with us. Oh, actually, by all means, chat with us. There's actually my friend Dr. Akil Fletcher in the back. Yes, who's working on this talk probably right now at 3 p.m. In this room as well. So stay tuned for that. But yes, feel free to come up, ask us questions, and just be in community with all of us. And with that said, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.